Below 7,000 meters, there is no sun, no warmth, and no memory of the surface. Pressure here exceeds 1,000 times what your body was built to withstand. But it's not the weight that breaks you. It's the silence. The kind that doesn't just surround you, it fills you. Light doesn't survive at this depth, not because it fades, but because it's refused. As if this place were designed not just to be hidden, but to hide back. We measure depth in meters, but we feel it in silence. The deeper we go, the less we see, and the more we feel. Somewhere beyond this pressure, memory dissolves, language becomes irrelevant, recognition breaks down, your name stops mattering, not because you forgot it, but because nothing here can pronounce it. So when you descend past 7,000 meters, you don't just go deeper. You go somewhere you were never invited. I don't remember when the descent actually started. The monitors said it began 2 minutes ago, but my ears said otherwise. You can feel the pressure before you see it. It doesn't crush, it pulls. Your suit becomes part of you, your body becomes part of the chamber, and the chamber becomes somewhere else. I stopped hearing the engines. The only sound left was my breath, and even that began to feel like someone else's. The surface is no longer a direction. I can't feel acceleration. I can't tell if I'm sinking or if something else is rising to meet me. I check the depth reading. 4,380 meters, still descending. But none of this feels like movement. It feels like surrender. As if I've passed a line where physics is optional and something deeper than laws is watching. There's a moment in the descent when the light doesn't just dim, it vanishes. You think the cabin lights went out. You check the panel. No, it's still on. The numbers are glowing, but around them, nothing. It's not darkness. Darkness is a color. This is the absence of being seen. You raise your hand in front of your face. Nothing. The cabin doesn't echo anymore. Even the engine hum is gone. I start to hear something else, but not outside, inside. Like a distant breath echoing through my skull, I say my name aloud, just to feel it vibrate. But even that doesn't come back. There is no response in this place, no return. You speak, and the pressure keeps it. Sound doesn't reflect. It just dissolves. The first thing I noticed wasn't pain. It was my breath. Not shorter, but slower. Not weaker, but louder. As if every inhale had to push through a different kind of air. It didn't feel like oxygen anymore. It felt like something thicker. Like breathing through warm glass. I adjusted the flow controls. Nothing changed. My chest expanded normally, but the breath felt like it stayed behind. My fingers tingled. My toes went numb. Not from cold, but from disinterest. As if blood wasn't leaving, it was being ignored. I clenched my fists. Nothing. My hands felt like they belonged to the suit now. Or worse, like they were still moving, just not where I could feel them. I looked down at my legs. They were still there. But the pressure outside the hull didn't seem to care. It wasn't pushing in, it was waiting. That's what scared me. It wasn't the squeeze of 1,000 atmospheres. It was the patience. Like the ocean was testing me, not to crush, but to reshape. Not to break my bones, but to convince them they were built for something else. My breathing became the only rhythm I could rely on. One inhale, pause. One exhale. Longer pause. Except that pattern started to change, not on the monitors, but in my head. I was breathing regularly, but my mind wasn't registering it, like the action was continuing without the perception. I started to forget if I just inhaled or if I was about to. My lungs worked, my brain floated, and then the thought hit me, what if I've already drowned, and this is just the body finishing its script? It started with a sound, but not from the ocean. From the speakers. A burst, then silence. I checked the comms panel. No incoming transmission, no feedback, just static. But it wasn't random. There was a rhythm to it, not Moore's, not human. I tried adjusting the frequency, nothing changed. Then it stopped, and then came the voice. Not words, not syllables, just a texture, like something pretending to speak, without understanding how. It felt like I was being imitated, as if something was trying to guess what a language sounded like without ever having heard it. The sound wasn't outside. It was in the hull, like it had already arrived, like it had never left. My own voice recorder blinked. No signal, no source, just the symbol, unknown origin. I tried to speak. "This is Dive Unit 3, do you copy?" Nothing. I repeated it, louder. Still nothing. And then another sound. Quieter, slower. A whisper I didn't make, but somehow responded to. Not in my ears, in my spine. Like recognition, but with no meaning attached. I wasn't hearing, I was being reached. I stared through the viewport, not expecting to see anything. Just black water, just pressure. But something was there. Not moving, not glowing, not even defined. Just a curve, like the edge of a mountain, too close to focus on. I leaned forward, adjusted the lights. Nothing changed. The instruments showed no object, but it was there, a darker dark, a shape that didn't interrupt the water but replaced it. It had no edges, no surface, only suggestion, like a blind spot made of mass. And it was huge, not just big, wrong, like it had volume without size, presence without distance. Every part of my brain refused to render it, but it didn't leave. It didn't approach, it just was, and I couldn't stop looking at it. I waited for movement. A twitch, a shift, a flicker of intention. Nothing. The longer I stared, the more certain I became. It wasn't watching me, it was watching through me, like my presence was translucent, like I was a camera, not a person. And then I realized my breath had stopped. Not out of fear, not out of awe, out of invitation, like my body was politely waiting to be acknowledged. The creature, or whatever it was, offered no response, not indifference, not hostility, just stillness. And that stillness felt louder than any noise I'd ever heard. It wasn't ignoring me, it was absorbing me. My voice recorder blinked again, signal lost. I whispered without meaning to, "What are you?" There was no reply, but I felt the answer. Not in words, not in thought, but in shape. It knew I asked. It knew I understood. And then it blinked. Something changed. I didn't see it, I didn't hear it, but I felt it. Like a screen inside my brain had been flipped. The pressure was no longer external. It was inside the cabin. The walls didn't bulge, they bent. Slightly. As if the hull was no longer containing the ocean, but negotiating with it. My instruments flickered. Depth reading, new, mixed, oxygen mixed, stable. That was the worst part. Everything said I was alive, stable, within tolerance, but nothing around me agreed. The temperature dropped, then rose. My skin couldn't decide what it felt. The light inside the cabin pulsed once, then froze. Not off, not dim, just frozen. Like the concept of illumination had stopped updating. My fingers twitched. My suit felt too small, then too big. I blinked. The viewport was gone. Not black, not shattered, just missing. In its place, a surface, but I couldn't tell if I was looking at it or if it was looking at me. I tried to breathe deeply. It worked, mechanically, but the feeling didn't follow. I began to count my breaths out loud. 1, 2, but the words felt delayed, as if they arrived a moment after I said them. I tapped the hull. Once, twice. The sound came back wrong. It wasn't metal. It wasn't anything. like the material had changed into something undecided. My limbs felt disconnected, not numb, but unassigned, as if they still functioned but no longer belonged to me. I moved my hand, and it moved, but there was no agency, no certainty. I closed my eyes, opened them again. The cabin remained, but the labels were wrong. Buttons with no text, lights with no function, screens with no reflection. Nothing was broken. Everything was reinterpreted, as if reality was being slowly translated into a language I didn't speak, not destroyed, not corrupted, just rewritten, line by line, and I was still being edited. I tried to recall the checklist, the names, the mission, my own voice. Nothing came, not blank, just unimportant, like those things were part of someone else's assignment. I still knew how to think, but not who was doing the thinking. The thoughts were clean, sharp, but disconnected, like the pages of a book torn out and shuffled by someone who didn't care about order. I looked at my hands again. They moved. I moved them, I think, but even that was more guess than fact. I said my name aloud. It sounded fine, familiar, but wrong in a way I couldn't define, like hearing the name of a childhood friend you haven't seen in decades, close but not current. I didn't panic, I didn't freeze, I just observed. The person I had been was not gone, just archived, available for reference, not for control. Something else was doing the driving now, something that knew how to steer but didn't know where to go. The lights blinked again. This time, I didn't look at them. They weren't for me anymore. I wasn't the operator, I was part of the interface. I reached for the controls. My hand obeyed, but the intention wasn't mine. It was like typing with someone else's words already queued in the buffer. I watched the screen scroll, lines of data I couldn't understand, but I knew what they meant. Not intellectually, the way a bird knows the direction of winter. It was information that bypassed language, purpose without explanation. I felt myself nod, not physically, internally, like a file confirming receipt. Somewhere above me, the surface still existed. I remembered that. I remembered pressure and light and air, but they felt foreign, like old clothes from another life. I wasn't disconnected, I was reconnected to something I had never met and somehow always belonged to. I reached for the mic again. Dive Unit 3, do you copy? No response. I said it again, this time slower. Nothing. I checked the console. Status: online. Channel open. Transmit active. But the waveform was flat, like it wasn't even trying. The machine thought we were still talking, but the ocean had already ended the conversation. I tapped the recorder. It blinked once, then stopped. No error, no malfunction. Just stopped. Like a conversation that had outlived its speaker. The logs remained, the text remained, but the voice had been cut. Not censored, not lost, concluded. The system didn't shut down. It went quiet. And there was no silence like that. Not empty, just finished. I tried to speak again, but nothing came. Not because I had nothing to say, because the act of saying had already been filed away, like the channel was full, or no longer accepting input. My mouth moved, my thoughts formed, but the medium no longer cared. One final blink on the monitor. A small message. Recording complete. No timestamp, no metadata, just that. Then the screen went black. Not off, not broken, just done. I think I nodded. Not as a person. As a process. Something finished. Something acknowledged. Somewhere outside, the trench still deepens. But I will not describe it. Not because I refuse, but because I've become part of the thing I was trying to document. And it no longer needs a voice. There is no surface anymore. No edge to ascend toward, no direction that promises change, just depth, layered upon depth, and somewhere within it, something watches. Not with eyes, not with judgment, but with patience. The kind of attention that doesn't seek to understand, only to witness. You are no longer the subject. You are no longer the observer. You are part of the equation now. The data, the variable, the thing that proved itself by disappearing. There are no more transmissions, no more attempts to explain. Only drift, only stillness, and the slow, methodical pressure of being seen forever. In the end, there is no scream, no final revelation, no shape to curse or worship. The ocean does not close around you, it does not hate you, it does not love you. It simply allows you to remain, suspended, dismantled, observed. There is no fear left, only echo, only weight, only a presence so large it no longer needs motion, so old it forgot how to end. If you are still listening, it's not because you survived, it's because something else wanted you to hear. Something that remembers sound but no longer uses it. Something that wanted to leave you with one last silence, yours.